Hi everyone, my name is Hannah. I'm the owner of Angel Wings brand and International Academy of Eyelash Extensions, and this is the very first issue of the Lash Show. This issue is dedicated to the topic of Lash Championships, Lash Conference, and other Lash events. So, if you had never attended Lash conferences or any Lash events, this definitely will be interesting for you. And if you did, that also will be interesting because you will know all the dirty secrets about this. Today we have an amazing guest. She is, of course, Lash educator, a star in Lashes, judge, speaker, and event organizer.
Hi guys, my name is Jill Heijligers-Peloquin and I live in Arizona in the USA. Thank you, Hannah, for inviting me to be part of your very first episode of the Lash Show. This is very exciting to be here. And if those of you who don't know me, I've been in the lash industry for some time as a lash artist, just like you, as a product supplier to professional lash artists, as an educator. I often will travel to judge competitions or speak at conferences, and I'll see you, I hope, for the Lash Global event in Montreal. Yeah, and I'm very excited to be here to answer some questions, to give you guys kind of a really in-depth look at some of the questions that I know that you have, and Hannah is brave enough to ask.
So this is the first issue, and my first part will be about Lash events and all the details about Lash events that people probably don't know. So you are the first one, and you should be scared because maybe some questions will be not very comfortable for you, and if you don't want to answer, you just don't.
Okay, no worries.
Okay, I just would like you to remember all that days when you were not judging, not speaking to the conferences, not doing anything, just maybe participating. And how and why have you decided to go to championships or conferences? What was your first experience, and how did you and why did you decide to continue?
Well, the conferences that I have been to, the reasons why I bought a ticket were because for me, I'm not just with lashing, but whatever I feel is the kind of the valley or the dip in my personal education that will set me up for a better goal, I go for. And that could be sometimes an online class, or it could be an in-person, like, a speaker comes to a stadium and you buy a ticket and you sit as a kind of an attendee, like almost
Yes.
like you're watching a play, but you're watching a speaker. And I've gone to conferences as well. Some of them are business related conferences and motivational. I just attended a conference for lashes as an attendee myself, just bought a ticket and went. And the reason that I would buy that ticket is for me, for my personal growth and my personal education, not the growth of my business or not like a specific project goal, but more for my own enrichment. So I can bring more to the table, whether it's talking about marketing, whether it's helping a friend, whether it's dealing with my family finances, etc. So I look at it as a personal, like, self-mastery thing. I'm investing in myself.
Yes, but did you see the value in this event right away, or you just tried and you didn't have any expectations?
No, I always see value in them. And those, I'll be very honest, some of them, like I have an inner critic, like we all do, even for ourselves, but for other things as well. And I'm probably worse on myself than I am on any others. But my inner critic, but I always try to remember, if there's something that didn't meet my full expectations, I still look for whatever the rose is, you know what I mean, the hidden gem.
To find the brilliant inside.
Yeah, exactly, because sometimes you learn by other people's wonderful example. Sometimes you learn by other people's not so wonderful examples, and it really actually still helps you to level up. Improve.
So in every event, you just find the part that is best for you and that you can use.
And I do reflect on what I feel is the least favorite parts, or the least the parts that wowed me the least, and I reflect on,
just don't do
like,
it.
like if that could be redone over, how would that be better,
Yes.
suited to me? Because when you kind of debrief like that, whether it's good or bad, but you're happy for the opportunity, I think you grow and you learn. That sounds so esoteric and so, like there's rose petals falling and birds are whistling, but
Yeah.
really truly I choose to look for a positive. And it's a choice. I'm not a Pollyanna. I make that my business, because if I put my money down to invest in it, and I fly somewhere and I buy the hotel and make those arrangements, and I'm leaving my family behind and my animals and my lovely life, I want to find something good out of it.
Yeah, that's what I usually do with the courses. You can have
Yeah.
only one small piece of information that will turn your world upside down. In good or bad meaning.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
What was your first conference, and what was your first competition? If you want to name, you can name them. And what experience did you have as a judge and a speaker?
Okay, as a judge or a speaker, my first, I am trying to remember back. I think actually I spoke at a conference that I organized with Loretta Yasilianika and Eva Zacharias. I'm pretty sure it was ours, and I wanted to, but I come from a background, a part of my work background is on cruise ships. So the hospitality industry, 12 years working with Holland America Line and being the ship's social hostess and assistant cruise director, where I managed the entertainment staff. I totally am all about like the experience for the attendee or the traveler or the
Yes.
participant. So we had an event idea to do events together. It was called Global Lash Summit, and we called it global because
yeah, I've heard of it.
To do 3 versions, one in the US, one in Canada, and one in the United Kingdom. We ended up doing 2 rounds of each. So we did 6 events in 12 months.
Wow.
And between the first one and the last one, I also then spoke at other conferences, but the first one was ours.
Was it only the conference or championship as well?
We had what was called a mock competition. We didn't have it really was like a legit competition, but we called ours a mock competition because it was open, meaning the judges and the people who weren't competing could go and look and speak with the people who were doing the lashes.
Poor girls.
Well, we gave them tips and helped to mentor them. So wherever they felt frustration, because the whole thing we thought that about people not wanting to compete or being shy to compete is that they just didn't know what the experience was like. And we thought, well, this will be kind of like wading in the water a little bit, feet first, then up to your ankles and up to your knees, and then you'll be ready next time to dive in. So we called it a mock competition.
Okay.
And it was judged. There were prizes, there were trophies. We celebrated them just like, they were real winners, and they really did compete with one another with real criteria held to high standards. That was my first judging. Although I was invited to, the very first time I was invited to be a judge, I was invited by Irina Levchuk to go to Russia, but I declined for travel purposes. I couldn't go at that time, and I really regret not being able to be there. She's a major influence in my personal lash life. She's a good friend, a good colleague. We've known each other for quite some time, and I really, really wanted to go, but it didn't work out. So that's a regret.
Which was the first one that you actually went to?
Other than my own events, with the Global Lash Summit, To put it in order, I went to, gosh.
Yeah, I understand it's hard to remember.
I went to Laval in Quebec
Mm-hmm.
and did one there. In a second, I'm sure my mind will put it in the right order because it kind of all like goes really a blur. Been to Lithuania, Ireland, Scotland, UK, Canada,
Mm-hmm.
the US. I think that's it.
Not so little.
Well, yeah, I know. Sounds small, sounds big. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm more interested about Lash Artists International that you organized yourself. Or was it somewhere also with you?
I did Lash Artists International 2 times, and both times was in Arizona. So
Yeah.
in 2017 and in 2018.
Were you the only organizer?
Yes, yeah. We did 2 online competitions and 2 live competitions, and the live competitions had a conference with them as well.
Why have you decided to make it yourself?
I always, when there's something that I'm super curious about and then my passion kind of takes over, then I kind of trip in my own mind about how I would take what I liked from this and what I liked from that experience and when I attended this and whatever, and kind of mash it together and blend it, and then my own ideas of how to like improve or maybe make something kind of a little bit more unique, a little different than the last time that I attended one. I spin my ideas kind of one off of another, so I'm constantly trying to not step in the same waters twice, but just make sure that even if the attendees came to every single event that I ever did, that they would have a different experience each and every time.
Yeah, that's great. And I also not a big fan of the same repeating topics of the judges, or I'm sorry, speakers. But as girls asked me for the last conference, could you speak about Lash again and again and again? And I have this time I have around 7 topics to speak.
Right. Sometimes it's not your choice to take on a subject again, and then other times you just really are like saying, oh gosh, if they have me speak on, like for you, the lash shed and the biology, for me, sensitivities and allergies or whatever, or cyanoacrylate, and I go, oh, I have so much more in me, come on.
Yeah.
I would really like to be able to say that looking back, I could do a brand new presentation at each and every conference that I spoke at. But the reality of it isn't going to be like that, because sometimes the organizer requests something of you. You're actually filling a gap in the presentation.
Yes.
They have too much technique, or they have not enough technique. Can you please teach that thing that you do well? Or sometimes it's out of your control.
Yeah.
You're kind of just a hired talent, like you have to say what's on the script, that's it.
Yes. How soon after the 6 ones have you decided to organize yours?
How soon after
the event with the girls?
I knew when we disbanded as a group, our working lives were taking us into a bunch of different directions, and I knew that I wanted to continue, and I told them at the meeting, our final meeting, that I was moving forward, that I would not call it Global Lash Summits anymore. I would riff on a new name, and so I started planning that next day.
Okay.
For me, it was like good, bad, or ugly, you're on a high, like an adrenaline high, off of an event, whether you're an attendee or a speaker or a judge or an organizer. It's hard to come down off of that feeling. There's a lot of dopamine going on in your brain, and so while that was fresh and hot feeling in my head, I wanted to secure speakers.
Now we have the real reason why Jill makes the event. She just want to get high.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, that's it's like, even like with working out,
it's a big responsibility.
Riding bikes, if I don't ride my bike and get in my really good sweat so that I get that rush of really good feeling, the epinephrine going through my brain and the oxygen through my body, then I miss it, and that's the way I feel about work. which is kind of amazing, because a lot of people just punch in and punch out, right? You know, they
Yeah.
have to be there by a certain time. They clock out at lunch and they eat a sandwich. They clock back in, you know, take a quick break, whatever. For me, work as in the lash industry has never been like that. It's always been really full of energy and full of deadlines and adrenaline and excitement. You know, very, very little. You know, it was never a dull moment. That's for sure.
Yeah. So let's talk about money question. That is the probably most interesting question for everyone.
I think so.
And yeah, the first and most important questions. And where the hell do all the money go?
Right. Well, I will tell you. Anytime a participant or an attendee looks at the cost of an event and says, what is the value proposition for me? What am I going to get out of it? That's a great question. But whenever they say, why does this cost $797 or $997
Yes.
or $599 when the
Anyway, it's not cheap.
it is precisely like comparing your lashes to another person's lashes
Yes.
down the road. It's precisely the same thing. If you don't know, and you never know as a participant, they will always hide this. So I'll be very transparent with you and with your audience listening to this interview. Anything that I have ever charged anybody, so you guys can do the math in your head, $997 or $897, right? Those are the two prices I've ever charged for. I lied. My very, very, very first one with Ellie and Jason from Ellie Melman and Jason from 3D Beauty, we charged $397, and it was a one-day event, and it was just like I think 6 speakers and a lunch. You know,
Lash
so
lunch.
Yeah, so we charged $397, but it wasn't the same. It wasn't a competition and a conference and parties and you know all the
Yes.
bells and whistles. So $897, $997. I can guarantee you that the organizer, and this is the truth in my case as well, spent 100 times what you were buying for your ticket. The way we have to look at it is not a profit-making
Absolutely.
endeavor at all. You know this, Hannah.
Yeah, I know that.
But it costs for venue, it costs for catering, it costs for promotion, and for your talent. Even if you are not, I think we'll get into this in a little bit if I'm correct, even if you're not paying famous keynote speakers to come and they do this for a living, you know, and it's charged whatever their price is, even if you're not paying keynote speakers, you are paying for each and every one of your speakers, whether it be in hotel accommodation or a travel stipend, covering their meals, things like that, and everything that they need to put on a great show. The audio visual stuff is not free. It costs.
Yes, and what you did last time, I wasn't at your first event. There was so many technical stuff inside. Like I can't imagine how much did it cost? Like everything, the venue, the technique. I mean, the photographers, the guys, the naked guys.
Weren't they awesome? My budget in the end, and I came right in on budget. My budget was $100,000 for that event.
So if we can add naked guys to the event, we will add naked guys to the event.
Okay, cool. I'll tell you where to get a good deal. Now, honestly, and we did not take in $100,000 in ticket sales.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Do you think girls are more interested in competition or conference?
Depends on where you're from.
Okay.
If you're from Eastern Europe, competition. If you're from Western Europe or stateside, conference. And I have no idea why, quite honestly. that they are all for one or the other, but it's pretty black and white. And when you are trying to make events in Europe, to get people to purchase conference tickets is the struggle. Well, I'll just say that I can't make rhyme or reason why people prefer one over the other, because to me, both of them together is like getting both sides of the story. It's getting great education and information that you can apply to perhaps winning a competition.
Yeah.
And then doing the competition is like the whole reason why you're there, I think, is to put yourself on the line and stretch or push your boundary a little bit so that you're better when you walk away from that event. So for me, I don't see the reason why people prefer one or the other.
So, continuing my question, we already touched a little bit about your expenses.
Mhm.
What are the expenses from the other side? The judge part, when you go somewhere, and I kind of went to the idea that sometimes judges, sponsors, speakers, they pay much more than attendees.
Heck yeah, they do. They really do. For the privilege of having your brand highlighted, even if you're not doing any sales there, you have to travel there and miss work. So actually missed work that you
Yes.
normally would be doing at home is a cost, is a negative for you. And some conferences will cover like your hotel.
Yeah.
And say, yeah, and I will put you up in a very nice hotel if you can travel here. And some of them will pay you a travel stipend if you can negotiate that. Some people who speak and do this kind of a thing for a living actually will tell you what their cost is, what their rider is, what their requirements are. I think that that's fantastic, to tell you the truth, because if you go to a conference and you're using this moment as a speaker to launch your newest course or your newest program, you should actually pay to speak there, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
If you're there purely for the education and the empowerment of the people who are paying to attend, then I think you should be paid as an educator and as a speaker. Right now, the reality is it's somewhere kind of in the mystery, middle, muddy, mucky way. For each event, it's a little bit different. And I will say, I happen to know that for some people in some events, travel is paid for, and for others, it's not. When I've personally gone to events, the only events in the US that I have been to as a speaker are the Hollywood conference, and I live in Arizona, and California is one state away.
Mm-hmm.
I just, I can fly, and it will cost me just very little to fly there, but I can also drive there.
It's the same story when you're in Europe and you have a conference in Europe. It's easier to pay the road. And from Canada to Europe, it will probably cost like $12,000. Completely worth.
Oh, how much does it cost me on average to go and be a judge somewhere?
Judge and a speaker and a sponsor, about that.
About $5,000 or $6,000.
So yeah, even if you go to some kind of
event.
Yeah, if you go to some kind of Lash event, just know that it's not only you paying for the road and accommodation and the event; it's also all people there.
And giving presents to each of the attendees, because you can't, as a brand, just say, oh, you know what? We're not selling so much of these. I will just give these. You can't do that. You can't give your white elephant sale. The gifts that you give to those attendees have to be the kinds of things that are hot in your market that you want them to buy, and that you're going to keep stocking. So they have to be your hot selling items. They can't be just like these things that you're trying to get rid of. Yeah, you're trying to just get rid of all of your stuff. It's really like you have to plan ahead for this, and you have to order extra for these events. So planning for them and being invited to them sometimes is, of course, we want to say yes to everything. right? Because it feels so good to be considered and to get that beautiful invitation to be part of an event. But if you don't have enough time to plan for it, and if you don't have enough in your advertising budget or your traveling budget to order and be able to send those prizes off, then you can't. There's a lot of little moving parts and pieces and scheduling things that go into this.
Yeah, and sometimes even sending all these presents costs a lot.
Just the shipping of them costs more sometimes than
like 300-400 for little, like not very heavy packages.
Right, for sure. And we have deadlines to meet for the organizer, and we want to not stress them out, because as organizers, we understand how stressful that can be. So you don't want to stress them out. So you have to meet their deadline, and maybe it doesn't meet your budgeting deadlines, but you just make it happen for them. And it's almost like you're making someone else's business happen while you're stalling out on your own. So there's a lot of plates spinning at the same time when you go and you decide to be a speaker, a judge, a sponsor. Gosh, and if you're a sponsor or a sponsor/vendor, like at an event where you bring your things to sell, people must think that, I'm sure it's human nature for them to think, oh, they're making a killing here. But it's not true, because the added stuff you have to bring, you're paying either, if you're flying, you're paying excess luggage, or you're traveling by a slower way so you can bring the stuff, or you're shipping it ahead of you, having someone to receive it, and then you have to give a good show price. So it's not even the same price as you could have stayed at home and made 2.5, 3 times as much money. So
it's worth.
There is a payback for it. There is a
representing your brand, and that's more about communication.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you're at a trade show, that's a dedicated trade show, and it's not like 6 or 7 other different kinds of beauty businesses in the same place, you really get to talk one-on-one finally with your customers. You really get to put a handshake or a hug or eye contact with that person, and you get to know precisely what they need from your brand.
I just thought that you can sell free hugs. There's a guy near your table with a small carton, like a bonus or something. We can even have a naked guy there.
To help you, like, I don't want to hug you, I just want to look.
Make a photo, $10.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah. So there's a lot of different moving parts to it. It's a lot more complicated than it looks.
And also there are so many different unexpected spendings when you organize that.
For sure. Yeah.
Also for deliveries, for making some money transfers and paying for the money transfers.
Yeah. All the costs of doing business.
What was the most difficult part of organizing your last event? Or maybe not the last event. What was the most difficult for you as an organizer?
Okay, for me personally, I would say the most difficult part is dealing with the emergencies, the little tiny emergencies that happen, and putting out those fires, and then yet still being able to think ahead to smooth the way for the next set of presenters. It takes so much mental energy that you become a zombie after your event for a couple of days, because literally, like, it doesn't matter if you got sleep, you're not resting because you're dwelling on, and to prevent that from ever happening again, I'm going to make sure tomorrow morning when I go in, it's, we're going to make sure we do this. And there's always these little unplanned things, no matter how great an organizer you are, that you just have to roll with. And even if you have a really good attitude about those things, and it looks like on the outside that you're not stressed, the amount of energy that you give out to deal with all those things and then keep your head on track and your patience in order so that the event goes well and you have a smile on your face, that takes incredible incredible energy.
Could you please specify what kind of different small things can
Yeah.
happen? And
Okay. So, for instance, as an organizer, you ask all of your presenters to bring their presentations, and if you say, okay, so we need them on PowerPoint, and or bring them on a flash drive or send them to me on Google Drive so we have them and we can test them, and then you get to the facility and everything that you've checked, you go in and they have a different version
oh yeah,
of PowerPoint. And then all of a sudden, the couple of minutes that you have, there's really skinny minutes that you have to make sure that the next presentation, click, 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 is going to go through. All of a sudden, someone's fonts change and get like kind of corrupted.
yeah, I remember
or
that.
The graphics or shapes, something goes really wrong with them. And then you have to just scramble and you have to think on your feet, which there is no problem doing that, right? Being a problem solver, it's great. But at the end of the day, to tally up the amount of energy that it takes to win all those little battles and still have a smile on your face and stuff is just, it's incredible. The amount of energy. Yeah, the amount of energy is just, wow, it's definitely at great cost. Yeah. I don't like, just personally, some people have no problem with it, but I don't care for being the model wrangler. You know what I mean? Like being the one who provides models for other people, because
Every participant has to make their choice.
yeah, and then you've kind of either helped them win or helped them lose, right? So I honestly think, for me as a competitor, same. It's the competitor's responsibility to arrange their model, to meet them, to get to know them. Even if you're traveling, they're all over Europe. They buy plane tickets and hotel rooms for their models. They travel with them, or you go early and you make sure that that you can you line up a couple of people, maybe through, Messenger or what have you, and you line up a couple of them, you have a model call, and then you pick who will be the best. And you pick a standby as well, just in case, because things do go wrong. Yeah. Personally, I don't like being a model wrangler. I find that exhausting.
At some competitions, they can provide models for like 36 euros or something.
Yeah, in America, it would have to be a little bit more, because basically, I think what you're doing is you're paying someone for their time for the day. You would call a modeling agency, but the day rate here is more than 40 or 50 euros. The day rate here, that's pretty expensive, but could do it. Sure. That would be a lot easier for everyone, but costly. Yeah. A serious competitor, their model choice is really important to them, not just their skills and studying the criteria and being a better and better and better lash master. Their model is super important. So I would never be able to leave it up to chance. I'd never be able to be happy with. In a class, yes, but not for competition.
Every lash event always have some kind of people who are not happy, who are not completely satisfied with the information they get or any kind of results they get after competition. So how do you cope with it? Did you have this kind of situations? Just share your experience.
Okay, so this happens to me, it happens to you, it happens to every event organizer. Every competition has its issues like this, and every conference has its issues like this. For me, and this is precisely what I have told the people who have voiced their complaint, whether they write it in or whether they tell me in person. First of all, I make it a point of listening to what they have to say, because I personally think that 80% of the issue is that they want to just be heard. So I make a point of listening. And then I also make a point of letting them know that in planning such a big event to please so many people, I go in it knowing that I cannot please everyone. But what I can do is I can try to make sure that 150% of my focus goes on delivering what I've promised. And if something goes wrong that's out of my control, I will be very creative in a solution for sure. But at the point when you're in live in a competition or in live in a conference, if something goes wrong from a participant's point of view and they put their money down and truly, I know they are missing work to be there. They have spent money to travel there, to buy the ticket, and maybe they had unrealistic or different expectations. Maybe they had very realistic expectations, but you just failed them. But you're never going to be able to please 100% of the people 100% of the time, ever. Just like they won't in their lash business. So it's basically just a case of the shoe being on the other foot. And I think you have to go in and you have to listen and you have to let them know that you realize that I've heard your story, and I do realize that you feel like, you haven't seen the value in it, but I assure you that everything that I've promised, I've delivered on. And if I've ever been caught not being able to, I will be so creative in turning this around to be a win-win. I have also asked the people super calmly, no matter what I'm feeling inside, because maybe my ears are burning red with embarrassment, or maybe I'm angry, or maybe I'm sad, on the verge of tears myself that someone doesn't like. Who knows, what the feeling is at the moment. But with a very nice, calm, neutral, no emotions manner, I ask them, in your mind, and I'm not saying that I can agree to it because I have no idea what you're going to answer to me, but in your mind, what would be the solution that would make this a win for you? And usually, I'm serious, usually they just want to be heard. They don't want to be just a blank face in the crowd. Very rarely has anyone ever demanded a refund of me. And I would not refund, but maybe I would give something of extra value.
You cannot unsee the presentations.
Yeah. Then psychologically speaking, they probably need to learn that thing. I wouldn't put that in my conversation with them, but it's kind of a thing, in life. It's like the stuff that you're uncomfortable about, the stuff that you're afraid of, the stuff that you dislike is generally a really valuable life lesson. So anyway, that's what I have done. And it takes a lot of energy. And then, of course, you need to go to your neutral corner, to your spouse or your best friend who can keep your confidence and, let your own feelings then vent about it so that you can just let it go. That's how I handle it. And believe me, in the business of lash supplies as well, which is the part of the lash business that I've been in the longest, besides being a lash artist, but I'm no longer a working lash artist. I don't work on clients. So product sales is I would say, the longest experience I have in this industry. And I will never be everybody's everything, solve it all. And the way people behave when they're writing you and typing to you is a bit shocking. I know they would never, if this was a one-on-one conversation, deliver that same conversation. So I always try to remember that. And if that means going away from the keyboard to just think about something else for a minute to come back to it, I have to remember, under normal circumstances, they would never read me the riot act like that. But people are very brave on a keyboard, and very, they put on a bravado that's not very realistic. And they make demands that are not very realistic. When people complain, whether it's at a live event or because of a purchase, even an in-store purchase, right? At the mall, or if you have an academy where you allow people to come in and physically come in and make a sale. If you you never really know what the real meaning behind their anger or their frustration is. It may just be that they're so frustrated with the lack of education that they have, that they can't make this work, that they take it out on you and this product. It's just human nature to look for the easy, you know what I mean? For the thing that you can blame, the scapegoat. And I think we have to remember that. And we have to say, I know that they're not personally mad at me. My husband always checks me on this. He says, take the emotions out of it in business. The more you can do that, the more humanity you can put into it, of course, the better, but not the emotions. Feelings are something that you can't really control, but the way you act upon your feelings is completely in your control, whichever side of the coin you're on. So I take that lesson as one that I have to continually remind myself of. And I hope that that's what I will always do, is not just because someone punches one of my buttons, I don't have to go back at it with feelings. I can say the action that I want to take to end this, confrontation is this, and take action. That's a stronger choice for sure.
Thank you. Let's change the topic a little. Now there are a lot of Lash conferences and Lash competitions. What is your opinion about it?
Yeah. I personally am a technophile. I love technology, and I love the direction that our world is going in. It's very inspiring to me, and it's very exciting to me. And I think that if you can get a PhD online, you can surely get a conference online, a kick-ass conference online. Honestly, I think that it's the wave of the future. However, there is something to be said about being able to network in person with people and make real connections with people. And it is special when you go to an event where you have a lot of good connections and you meet people who you really appreciate, and you take on life. Like you and we're friends now after Strictly Come Lashes. It's amazing. I didn't know you, you didn't know me, but I really like you. And I met your husband, and I wish that mine was there too. And, it's nice. It's great to make those one-on-one connections. But I really believe that if we take away the expense of the travel and of losing money for having to close down business to go to events, I think the future is online.
Yeah. But what do you think about current situation? Is it more or less?
To get there, I think there's going to be more conferences first. It's going to be a bit like Europe, where everyone's competing for not just a month on the calendar, but a weekend or a date on the calendar. And then they're going to realize that we need fewer and more quality, not quantity, but more quality. And then if it would go towards fewer events and then these online events, I think that would be quite something. Because then you can actually make a destination trip, make a plan for one of these big things. It's like the Hajj, it's your yearly, trip to Mecca, it's wonderful. And then online is very accessible to you. So I think there will be a nice combination of it, but it's going to take a little journey first.
Yeah, and especially returning to the 24-hour conference, there is so much information that will be given. Oh my God.
It's really exciting. That if you just kind of divide in, at this point, there's more than 48 speakers, but we originally promised 48 speakers. If you just divided 48 into the cost of it,
that's nothing.
I know, it's crazy.
The conference itself also costs like 1 or 2 full sets. I always compare it to a full set in my area.
Yes, exactly, because that's what we know. Yeah, of course, yeah. That's a good idea to compare it that way. Even if you think, oh, I can't afford it, but can you afford to get in, to really work hard to get in one more or 2 more clients, to give yourself the luxury of having this amazing education for a whole month or a whole year?
Yes.
Pretty cool.
Here's what I good advice to attend, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I want to add a little bit about oversaturation of events. I noticed that also in the Slavic part, because people had too many conferences, too many same speakers, and that's kind of make it a little bit messy. I don't know how it will be happening in Canada and US, but I just know that when there are too many conferences, people get very picky, and also the organizers cannot find enough people to attend, and everything have to cancel. And there are so many conferences that actually canceled this year just because of it. And the speakers, most of speakers that come to the event with the same topic all the time, they also, I don't know why, but sometimes don't think about making something new and adding something even to the existing topic.
Yeah, I'll tell you, one speaker who's a good friend of mine speaks on the same subject matter almost each time that I see them, but I listen every time I'm a speaker or an attendee or whatever. I really love to see like how people present as well. They actually evolve each and every time, which actually makes it pretty cool, because it's almost like they're taking that as their specific area of expertise. But if you see it over and over again, you can see how it changes, and they're really kind of going macro with the lens and then micro with the lens and adding new knowledge to it. That I appreciate that very much.
I just remembered Ellie throwing money that I can see much more times on the conferences, you know. That was such a great idea, because if Ellie will watch that, she will definitely laugh, because we were sharing room on your event.
Yeah,
that's when we first met, and she needed $100 actual dollar banknotes, and I was with the eyebrow tint on my eyebrows, and we were on pajamas. We just went downstairs on the hotel and robbed the guy who was there. That was probably scary. And she had the pajama with eyelashes everywhere.
Well, I will say this about Ellie. Every time that Ellie has ever presented at a conference that I've been at, and been quite a few where we work together, we're good friends, she always has a pattern disruptor. Her moment in the presentations is never ever boring. She will either come out with a laugh or a break in the feelings. You know, she does a pattern disruptor, and it's very, very fun, but it's also very, very wise of her to do that, because it lets people break out of the monotony of education, learn, and it just gives them a fresh outlook. Yeah, it like, whew.
Yeah, so just for you to know, if you go to Lash events and if you share a room with someone, doesn't matter if you're a speaker or attendee, and that is the part that I put to my event as well, the condition, just better share a room with someone. You will meet more people, and you will have, even if you're attendee, especially if you're attendee, you will have more connections with some people from other countries and their experience. And as we're all lashers, we can talk lashes all day. So
yeah, there's no shortage of something
happened a lot in the future. In the past.
Yeah, no, I think it's also a really successful idea too, for sure.
Thank you very much for your answers, and thank you for the interview. See you all guys in the next issue of The Lash Show.